At the end of this learning segment, you will be able to explain the purpose of an aggregate function. Describe how each of the 6 basic functions operate. Use an aggregate function in a select and a where clause. In this chapter, the aggregate functions we'll be looking at are count all, count, sum, average, max, and min. Aggregate functions allow you to calculate a single value from the rows in a result set or from the values returned by a value expression. The basic syntax for aggregates are function name. The distinct is optional. The value expression and an alias. An alias is beneficial because in SQL Server, your column will not have names otherwise. We will start with the count all column functions. What's the count all? It's the asterisk in parentheses, and what it does, it is retrieving all columns in the row that are selected, and then returns a count of the number rows. Here are some examples from your book, where one is just counting the number of students, and the other is putting a literal value in one of the columns and then count the students in the other columns to make the results a little more readable. Count will ignore nouns, so it will give you the count of values that are actually in that particular column. If you want to count unique values, you can add distinct within the parentheses. We can count with filter. We can use the where clause as a filter to return only a specific number of records. We can compute the total with the sum. It will calculate the total for not known values and return a final total. We can also filter with the where clause. We can use the distinct inside the parentheses with sum. We can find the mathematical mean with average. Make sure you are using AVG instead of average. I know that within some applications you are allowed to write out average, but not here. You'll need AVG. You can again use distinct inside the parentheses with the average function, so that instead of doing an average on all values, you are doing an average only on distinct value. We can find the max. Max works with any data type. It's going to return the largest value, and that will be alphabetical or numerically. Distinct doesn't work with max or min. We can also use the where clause to filter. And the min does just the opposite of max. It will return the smallest value, and it also works with all data types. And also, we can filter mean with where clause. And we can use more than one function. Here's an example of use both min and max in the select statement. We can use aggregate function as a filter. As a matter of fact, we did this earlier in subqueries. Here you can see what we're calculating the average contract price and comparing it to the contract price of a specific record. We can also use the aggregate function in the subquery to limit the results. This is something that we have already done. We did it in chapter 11. And yes, this is a very short chapter. You have seen many of the basics algorithm function already in the previous work. However, this is a great review to get us ready to get into more complex grouping and having that we'll be doing in chapter 13 and 14.